Hey guys, thank you for watching the Slat Rock channel. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon to get notified every time we post a new video. And if you've already done so, just make sure that it's still active. Today we present you with 15 wrestling gimmicks you never knew were based on real people. Number 15. John Morrison, based on Jim Morrison. Even the most diehard of John Hennigan fans must have trouble keeping up with his ring names, as he's been called everything from Johnny Blaze to Johnny Spade before debuting on WWE TV in 2005 as Johnny Nitro. After capturing the ECW World Championship at Vengeance Night of Champions 2007, Nitro changed his name to John Morrison and revealed a new look, though it was clearly based off of popular rock star Jim Morrison. With his natural good looks and fluffy hair, fans flocked to the new champion, who also copied other mannerisms of the famed singer of The Doors, as well as developing a massive ego. As Morrison, the character would last for several years, and in addition to winning the ECW title, Morrison would also hold the Intercontinental, WWE Tag, and World Tag titles before his release in 2011. Number 14. Aaron Rex and Rockstar Spud, Liberace, and Scott Thorson. When WWE suddenly released Damien Sandow in May of 2016, fans were taken aback. With his gimmick of parodying other wrestlers, legends, and even public figures out of the company, Sandow had become one of WWE's most popular, though underutilized talents. Though many fans hoped Sandow's departure would lead to big things for the former Money in the Bank winner, his brief tenure in Impact Wrestling just made everyone more confused. Named Aaron Rex and taking Rockstar Spud as his Scott Thorson-inspired manager, the duo found some success, though the character never really went anywhere. After just a handful of months, it was clear the company and the wrestlers had given up on the idea, and Rex was released not long after. Number 13. Tammy Fitch, based on Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton may have made headlines with her 2016 US presidential campaign, but in 1992 she was best known as the wife of Bill. Though Clinton was a smart, politically minded figure, ready to make a difference in her own way, her liberal attitudes did face severe backlash throughout some Americans, particularly in the South. With this in mind, Tammy Sitch, who would later become WWE's Sunny, would parody Clinton, becoming Tammy Fitch. A staple of Smoky Mountain Wrestling, the character was pure genius, as the character was able to gain massive heat from the crowd just by saying Clinton's name. Number 12. Raven and the Jackal, based on David Koresh. CM Punk may have been described as a cult of personality in his theme song, but long before the straight-edge star set foot in a ring, there were stars like Raven and the Jackal. Despite being in different companies, the pair shared many similarities, as Raven's quiet, eerie demeanor would spark intrigue from the loyal ECW faithful, whilst the Jackal would garner a similar reaction in the WWF. Part of why both men played cult-like leaders is because the US was facing a real threat from deranged religious fanatics at the time, with David Koresh being one of the worst. A truly deranged figure, Koresh was the leader of the Branch Davidians cult that perished during a standoff with ATF agents near Waco, Texas, and though the cult did unspeakable things, people couldn't help but tune in. Koresh was known for his charisma and manipulative personality, and it wouldn't be long before these traits were used in wrestling, with Raven and the Jackal both being called the David Koresh of wrestling by their respective companies. Number 11. Stone Cold Steve Austin, based on Richard Kuklinski. With his cold personality, ruthless attitude, and lack of care for anyone else, Stone Cold Steve Austin has perhaps the most fitting nickname in WWE history. But all those adjectives also apply frighteningly well for a famed contract killer named Richard Kuklinski, who was dubbed the Iceman for his methodical technique. It just so happened that whilst sat at home one day, Austin was watching a documentary about the killer and found the man fascinating. Though the real Steve Austin doesn't share much in common with Kuklinski, the Rattlesnake did borrow several personality traits to create the Stone Cold character, building arguably the greatest superstar of all time. Number 10. Patrick Clarke, Prince Iaukea, and the artist formerly known as Goldust, all based on Prince. One of the most bizarre and outlandish human beings to ever perform, Prince was a music icon that pop culture had never quite seen before. His royal badness was one of a kind, but that didn't stop the world of professional wrestling from making their own imitations. After denouncing his original gimmick, Goldust became the artist formerly known as Goldust, mimicking the singer's exile from Warner Brothers. Just 1 year later, it was WCW's turn to channel Prince, turning Prince Iaukea into another artist formerly known as, though this portrayal did at least include a purple suit and a manager from Paisley Park. Most recently, Tough Enough's Patrick Clarke channeled Prince, as the young superstar has become Velveteen Dream, one of the most popular acts in WWE today. Number 9. Pogo the Clown, based on John Wayne Gacy. If you don't know who Pogo the Clown is, you're probably not alone, as the wrestler never made it to WWE or WCW, but did have a lengthy stint in the ECW knockoff promotion Extreme Pro Wrestling. Chances are the reason Pogo never made it big is due to his character being based heavily on prolific serial killer John Wayne Gacy, with the Pogo name being a direct reference to the character Gacy would use to lure some of his 33 victims to their death. Whilst there have been some characters on this list that have been inspired by evil men, Gacy's crimes brought the entire US into a panic, and having a character sharing the same name with such a deplorable human being would be a PR nightmare for any major promotion. Number 8. Van Hammer, based on Eddie Van Halen and David Lee Roth. Frankly, it's hard to tell whether WCW was going for Eddie Van Halen or David Lee Roth when they created the character Van Hammer, which was seemingly based on both men. Of course, this being WCW, there's a strong possibility that the higher-ups at the company didn't know the difference between the two men, but it's obvious Van Hammer was based on the popular band. If done well, the character could have been a big deal for Van Halen fans, as well as a true tribute to one of the most popular bands in rock history. The only problem is, the character wasn't done well, as Hammer's poor wrestling skills meant he never got too far up the card, and the character quickly fell into obscurity. Number 7. Kid Kash, based on Kid Rock. Though the man is still pretty famous today, it's safe to say that Kid Rock was at his peak in popularity in 1998, shortly after the release of Devil Without a Cause. That same year, a young David Kash was struggling to gain any traction in ECW, where he had been for nearly 2 years without much fanfare. Realizing he needed a change, Kash channeled Kid Rock to become Kid Kash, which quickly garnered him a legion of fans. With his career picking up, Kash would later capture the ECW Television Championship, and the iconic suit worn by Rock on his album cover looked pretty nice in a wrestling ring too. Number 6. Waylon Mercy and Bray Wyatt, both based on Charles Manson. One of the most infamous figures in American history, Charles Manson, along with his Manson family, murdered at least 7 people, and was thrust to infamy even more with his insane, off-kilter behavior in interviews. Though Manson's wicked deeds can't be denied, the man himself was known to be extremely charismatic, able to convince many people to his will. As you can imagine, traits of Manson have been used in WWE, with Bray Wyatt and his Wyatt family terrorizing the company for years. Of course, you can't mention Wyatt without pointing out that it was actually Dan Spivey, best known in WWE as Waylon Mercy, who was the first to use Manson's tropes, and even cited the killer as a direct influence on the character. Number 5. Clarence Mason, based on Johnny Cochran. If it pleases the court, we would like to present you our next piece of evidence, Clarence Mason. From a certain point of view, Mason's character was mostly based on the real man, as he had actually gone to law school long before he entered the wrestling business. When Mason arrived in the World Wrestling Federation, though, the world was gripped with the murder trial of O.J. Simpson, and the Juice's lawyer Johnny Cochran was featured in the news a lot for his unique tactics. Seeing money, the company developed Mason's character, and though he was still a lawyer, he changed his vocal mannerisms and personality to imitate Cochran, matching the legal eagle to a T. Number 4. The Governor, based on Sarah Palin. In the run-up to the 2008 US presidential election, it was John McCain's running mate Sarah Palin who dominated the headlines. A controversial figure who was often a bigger discussion point than many of the real issues of the time, it was only a matter of time before Palin was parodied with her wrestling imitation being portrayed by Daphne in TNA. Deemed the Governor, the character was clearly a play on Palin, as the former WCW star dropped all her crazy antics in favor of a folksy accent and sharp fashion sense. Joking how she could see Russia from her backyard, something Palin had said repeatedly throughout the campaign, the main flaw with the gimmick was that it was relying on jokes everyone had already made. If anything, the gimmick made TNA seem late to the comical party, and it wasn't long before the character was dropped. Number 3. Colonel Rob Parker, based on Colonel Tom Parker. Though the Honky Tonk Man was a not-so-subtle reference to Elvis Presley, even the King of Rock and Roll's manager wasn't safe from the wrestling parody treatment. Prior to joining WCW, Robert Fuller was an accomplished wrestler and manager, though he became a much different man when he joined the Atlanta-based promotion. Enter Colonel Rob Parker, a Southern dandy and blatant parody of Elvis's manager, who, much like Colonel Tom, was equally manipulative of his own talent. Even though his intentions were always more on himself than his clients, his team, christened the Stud Stable, never seemed to care, simply being happy about the title shots he got them. Number 2. Oklahoma, based on Jim Ross. When Vince Russo feels the need to defend himself from critics, he'll often point to his originality and creativity that brought the WWF to its peak during the Attitude Era. And although Russo did do great things for McMahon, his actions in WCW not long after would forever tarnish his name, as well as several superstars. One character Russo made was Oklahoma, played by Ed Ferrara in a truly tasteless dig at beloved WWF commentator Jim Ross. Complete with Stetson, Oklahoma would mock Ross's real-life battle with Bell's palsy, and things got even worse when he got into the ring. Booked by Russo to win the once prestigious WCW Cruiserweight Championship, the character was ludicrous at best and tasteless at its worst. If there is a silver lining, it's that the character probably hurt WCW more than it did Ross, as JR remains one of the most beloved people in wrestling, whilst no one knows or seemingly cares what Ed Ferrara is up to these days. Number 1. Johnny B. Bad, based on Little Richard. Wrestling gimmicks can come from the strangest of places, but when Dusty Rhodes decided to base a wrestler on rock and roll singer Little Richard, the choice still seems strange all these years later. To be fair though, Mark Marrow, the man who played Johnny B. Bad, did make it work and dove headfirst into the character. Using feathery pink boas, loud squealing, and a flamboyant entrance, it's clear that Marrow had no problem playing the character based on the Tutti Frutti singer. The character definitely helped Marrow move up the card, as Bad captured the WCW Television Championship on 3 occasions and was voted the most improved wrestler of 1995 by the Wrestling Observer. As time went on though, the character got more confusing, as Bad transitioned away from the pomp and circumstance and more into Marrow's real-life past as a boxer, before he jumped ship to WWF in 1996, debuting as the Wild Man at WrestleMania 12. Well guys, that's our list. Can you think of any other wrestling gimmicks based on real people? Drop us a comment below and let us know. If you like this video, don't forget to check out our previous video, 56 current WWE wrestlers that haven't competed in a while. Also check out our other high-rated videos by clicking at the upper right-hand corner or down in the description field. If you indeed like this video, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss a single new video. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and as always, thank you for watching.